Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Imagining God podcast. So happy to be with you. We are back, as promised, with a part 2 with our sister, Jamie from New York. It was such a pleasure to have her on. We keep in touch here and there. And so we wanted to bring what would essentially be two friends having a conversation about our favorite topic. Isn't that right? Consciousness, the love of God, imagining creating reality, Neville, and a whole list of other things that we're going to jump into right now so as to redeem the time. So first of all, Jamie, welcome. It's great to have you back.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here, sharing your time. You are a busy mother, wife, on top of other things in your life, sister, all kinds of things. So thanks for being here. We do appreciate you. It's exciting to talk to somebody that's experienced the promise. I can't say I know a lot of people in my world that have, so it is a special thing for me. So we value you. There's a very strong, friendly sentiment of our viewers that love you. Alan, they're going to love Nico, who's about to come on. You guys are going to love Nico. So I just want to say, first of all, those of you that are watching, I really appreciate the support. I feel the love from you guys. I have to say, it does make a big difference. I was anticipating hitting YouTube or the public, with honestly getting called a heretic, which I have been. But the majority of the sentiment has been very strong and positive. So I just want to say thanks for that. It does mean a lot to me. And I hear you guys. We're going to try to get to some of your questions today. Jamie is the moderator and creator of a subreddit. If you're not familiar
I
with
didn't create it.
Oh, you didn't create that?
I manifested it being created, but I did not create it, which is
so you
cool.
created it, but you didn't create it. We got it. All right.
Someone else created it, and then I got asked to moderate, and I was just like, that was the easiest thing ever.
Well, you've been on fire. I love you just sharing your heart, your thoughts, your insights. So I've been silently enjoying it. I do get busy with life, so it's kind of, when I'm in between calls or something, I'll browse through. And so just appreciate your heart. But what I want to say to my viewers is go check it out. It's called Neville the Promise, right? You go on to Reddit, you can type in r/Neville the Promise. Jamie is on there sharing her thoughts. So go subscribe to that if you're listening right now. But let's jump in, Jamie, where we left off. We had a great show. You described your experience with the promise. If you're just tuning in, I encourage you to go watch part 1 to hear Jamie's testimony. It's fabulous. And we left off, I asked you, what is it that burns on your heart, Jamie? If you can impart something into the world right now, this were your platform, what would you want to share? And he talked about the essence of living from the heart. You repeated it several times, live from the heart, live from the heart. Let's start with that as our launching pad to jump into this episode. Can you give us a little continuation and elaborate on that for us?
Staying within the heart. So that's what I say, stay within your heart. Every experience that we come across, it will bring up emotions and thoughts. If you are constantly staying within your own heart space and you're letting that flame burn so much brighter than it has previous, it will build the bridge. It will bring you to the belief that will build upon the foundation of faith. Every experience that we go through, if we're staying in our heart, meaning focusing on our own feelings within it. So I come to an experience that may make me feel one way or another. And if I just keep it focused on myself, not blaming the other, not pointing the finger at this person made me feel this way, or this is why I'm having a bad day because this happened and that happened. If I just keep it always focused on me within my own heart, I'm able to bring myself back to whatever it is, back to that loving space, not condemning or judging another or pointing my finger that he did this or she did that. And it's always me focused in a way where it's always me coming from a place of love. I'm able to recognize myself in all others because of this. And I really do live by this. And I will always say, I'm able to see all sides. I could just see all sides of everything. The person that cut me off in the car and maybe inconvenienced me because I had to slam on my brakes. So maybe they were rushing to get home because their child is waiting outside, or maybe they're late for work. And you're just able to always say, okay, I'm going to give compassion, no judgment. I'm just going to come from a place of love. And then those experiences stop happening. That's the greatest part. Once you come to a place where your heart is cleansed and your mind is united with your heart, those types of experiences are no longer presenting themselves. Our world does change from the inside out. because of it. So that's what I tell everyone, to stay in your heart, stay in your heart space. I don't want to hear about what another did to you. Why is it making you feel that way? Why is those emotions coming up for you? Or go backwards. Why are you thinking that way? And that's how you'll be able to integrate the separation or see where you're separated. That's the big thing. I think a lot of people can't see where they're still separated in their reality, or separated within themselves. But our reality is showing us day in and day out everything that we need to learn for ourselves, because we're projecting it and it's reflecting right back, and it will be able to teach us, all of us, where we still need to work or what we haven't integrated.
And I want to define that just a bit, just in case anybody is new watching this. We're not talking about a physical heart, although that's a shadow of the spiritual function. The Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. From the heart flow the issues of life. And so you said you project from this place. It's really the, again, the source of the fountain of your life from which you see. It's this personal area of consciousness where you feel, right? It's your subconscious. It's what Neville teaches us in the use of the law, the wise use of the law, right? Is to impress upon the depth of your own self. So it's an aspect of your own self. And you said something really important. We've had a talk about this before today's episode about self-love. And I don't want you to get into like how that came to you, but talk just for a minute about self-love and why that's so important, and the way that you see and understand that.
The way that I see self-love and how I speak it out to others is when you have infinite love for self. It can take a while to get there, but when you truly have infinite love for self, you then can love others. It's not true love or heavenly love, divine love, eternal love. It's unconditioned. There's no conditions on it. So no matter what you have gone through, or no matter what state you have been in, or the actions that were tied to a state, you just accept yourself. I don't really say forgiveness, but even though that is a big word, I kind of think forgiveness is basically just like a shadow aspect of acceptance. So I will also include that. So let's just say I forgive everything about myself. I forgive all the things that I've done, or the ways that I've behaved, or the words that I've spoke, or situations I've been in that I know were because of me. And I just love on that. I just love on the fact that whatever it is that I've gone through, or all the aspects of myself, the shadow aspects, obviously, they need love, and that's how you integrate with them. That's how you dissolve them within you, and you become a whole being. I don't ever tell anyone, even in the Reddit, and I know it's very popular, and we talk about like this ego. I don't even know if an ego exists. I don't believe that does. I believe that it's all of us. We all have these aspects that make us who we are, for our personality, but we're supposed to love on it. It doesn't just go away. We don't kill it. We don't, it doesn't disappear. That's the illusion. The illusion is that we're supposed to love on all these aspects. Neville talks about it with the monster that he's created. You do see that monster, and you're supposed to love on that. And that's how we become complete, whole, in wholeness, in oneness, whatever the wording is. It is what it is.
And it is a challenge. I can say it's been a challenge for me personally. I became a youth pastor after I graduated college. I have a business degree from Penn State. And during those teen years, I strayed, I did drugs. I did a lot of stuff I'm not proud of. My best friend died of a drug overdose when we were in our 20s. And I had that coming to the Lord moment. And I have to say, a lot of my decision to go and share the gospel with people, I wanted to save the world, right? Wanted to save the younger generation and keep them from doing all the stupid stuff I did, right? But a lot of that was because it was hard for me to love and accept myself. And so I was kind of appeasing my own conscience, thinking that I was appeasing God by now going and being a good boy, right? And I was going out. So my motive was slightly misplaced. And I found it hard. It's a process, is what I want to say, to begin to accept yourself and to begin to really love yourself. And here's something that's really helped me. I have to say, in my last podcast, I talked about God being all in all and all as all. Only until you begin this awakening process and really begin to see God, who is the all, who is Jesus Christ, that one being wearing all of humanity as his garment. He's imagining himself, right, as all of us. The Bible talks about these angels that surround the throne of God with 4 faces and various wings. Like, these are all the different aspects of God's own being, his own self. And that I can deeply fall in love with. And most of you watching are into obviously the things of God. You love meditation, prayer. We're talking today, Jamie, because you and I love these types of spiritual things. We love God, right? We love talking about our experiences. What I've found that I think is going to help our listeners is fall head over heels in love with that being, and it circles back to your individualized self. As you said, some call it the ego, the mask that God wears, but he imagines himself as you, as me, and he's given us this unique individuality for eternity, where, you know, it's the glory of dwelling as the Son, and yet the Father and the Son are one. So that's the unfolding mystery of it all. But I find that self-love process is absolutely vital, number one. And it has to, it came to me and it's still happening. I have to say, it's still deep into me. I'm still working on it, but that those boundaries dissolve as my focus is on the Father. And then it allows me to love myself as the Son. Does that make sense?
The self-love thing, though, we all come to it, right? But what ends up happening is that all the experiences change because of that. When you no longer bring things in because you're not feeling it anymore, because you've accepted yourself. Like, I've gone through shit in my own life, you know, everyone has. And if I look backwards on that stuff, right, I don't focus on the past, though, because we do create this way. We bring the past to the future right here in the now moment. So I don't go backwards and do any of that stuff where I'm focusing on it. But those aspects of me, and I'm able to see, like, okay, if that didn't happen, then this wouldn't have happened, and I wouldn't have gotten to this point in my life, and I wouldn't have did this, and that wouldn't have happened. And I could trace my steps backwards and forwards to know that I got exactly where I was meant to be, when I was meant to be there, and everything is perfect and divinely perfect. But with saying all that, the self-love being so important, and it takes a long time to get there. Obviously, you know, I'm also a female, I'm a mother, so there's a lot of things where we would say, like, you know, how do you get to just ultimate infinite love for yourself? It's accepting myself. That's it. I just accept it. I don't have to do anything other than that. So yeah, so today, if I'm having a bad hair day, or as I'm talking to you, my nose is dripping because of the allergies or whatever it is, I'm not judging it. I'm accepting it. I'm going with it, whatever it is, what it is. So that's really what helped me. And that's what helped me change a lot of my interactions in my outer reality, or what I bring to my outer reality, because I am not seeing it the same way. I am not, and I give this example because it happens so often, where we'll think someone is looking at us, and we'll think that they're judging us just by what they're looking at. And that example alone is you judging that person for the way that they're looking, which doesn't make any sense, because how do you know what someone else is thinking? How do you know? Maybe that person can't even see. Maybe that person is just glancing over, and your perception of it had it where they're giving you a dirty look, or they're looking at you funny. And it's especially for females. I think that this is something, I'm not going to discredit men, because I know that men go through this also in a totally different way, but women talk about this, and I overhear it. I'm like, but no one's even looking at you. That's just your imagination. No one's even doing anything. You're going to let it ruin your day because of that. So that is something that happens. We just come out of these things where we're no longer coming from a place like that. We're not coming from an insecure place, or a place of judgment, or condemning, or limitation is a big one. We're not limiting others because we're not limiting ourselves. I don't limit you because I'm not limiting me. That's real. That's what, you know, means something to me. That even with this, Tom, honestly, even with people asking about their experiences, right? And this is going to happen, especially for you. People will come to you asking you about, what does this experience mean? I've had something similar. I won't limit anybody. I tell everyone that you've had the experience already, whether you have or you haven't. I want you to. So I'm not going to limit you by telling you what that means. That's a limitation. Now you're going to believe me and my interpretation of it. But you're your own. You're your own God. You're your own teacher. You're your own savior. So that's also on Reddit a lot. I get a lot of messages about, what does this experience mean? And I've had this happen to me, or is this like your experience? And I want everyone to know that no one can know for you. And you won't need to ask when it happens. You'll know.
You just know.
You'll know.
And there's
at
nothing
the
with
end.
nothing being wrong with friends and getting insight from each other, certainly, because that is part of the process. But 100%, even Daniel in the Bible, the one gifted to interpret dreams, says he sought the Lord for the interpretation. Well, the Lord is I am. So
Mhm.
go within your own self, contemplate these things a little bit deeper. Don't look to the outside for an answer. Look within yourself, and it's incredible. The answers emerge. You have a question about something in life, the answers emerge. So
We
yes,
need
you
to talk
absolutely.
about the two things. So I'm just going to say, you've helped me after I had told you my experience, right? And I gave you my interpretation of it with the example. I still didn't connect the dots the way that you were able to from the outside looking in. And all you did was basically repeat what I said and then gave me some scripture. So I'm going to speak about the nose, my nose pouring.
Which, by the way, is happening now as we're having this interview, which you said
Yeah,
is
it's,
rare for you. So it's
yes,
probably important we talk about this.
totally crazy that I told you. And it's even funnier because I said, I'm going to remember to discuss this because this is an experience that no one ever discusses. And even Neville didn't discuss it, like what happens during it. And as I was thinking about it last night and then today, and now all of a sudden I just can't get my nose to stop running. But this was different. So I had experience, and I talked about it last night with my husband. Like, do you remember? That's exactly what I said to him. Do you remember? So now I'm going to explain it. I experienced in the beginning, after the real awakening, because that's what I call it. All the other awakenings are just a series of awakenings to get you to this real awakening. So after the real awakening, and I had the dream about before the dream about the baby. This was like one of the first things. If someone would have told me at that point, because this is where I was in my consciousness, that I was an extraterrestrial, I would have believed it because it was like alien like. I was standing in my bedroom and all of a sudden my nose just starts pouring this clear liquid. Not just like a runny nose, like enough that it made a splash when it hit the floor, that it reminded me of when a woman has a water break. It was the craziest experience, and it continued to do that over, I want to say maybe the course of a week, because then it changed from this clear liquid to blood. That if someone told me at that point when my nose was gushing and it was hitting the floor, that's the amount of just like a pouring out of blood. If someone would have said that I was brain hemorrhaging or that like maybe this is a sign of death, you should go to the doctor, I would have definitely have went. I never told anyone though, because it sounded so bizarre that I would just be standing up doing nothing and all of a sudden my nose is just pouring out. When I said it to you though, and I told you it, I said it, it's like a woman's water breaking. You said, well, that is what happens when you birth from above. It is a birth. This is the experience. And I'm like, wait a minute, all along I knew it, but I still didn't correlate it to be part of the sequence because it wasn't even a big deal to me. I was like, oh, that was really weird that happened. But I went through a time period where my nose would leak and drip, my ears would leak and drip when I woke up in the morning. So when I would wake up in the morning, my ears would be wet. It was the weirdest thing. And at the time I was just like, oh, I'm just raising my vibration. This is what happens when you go through an awakening and you're working on your frequency. It wasn't until the end that I was like, all these little things were connected. So this was one of them. Which
were you tempted to go to a doctor? Because if I knew you then and you were my next door neighbor friend, I'd be like, Jamie, I think you should go see a
my
doctor.
husband said it, like, and he said it to me last night because my nose, as I'm talking to him about it, my nose starts to drip. And he is like, this is so weird that you could talk about something or you could mention something and then immediately it's happening. Doesn't that get annoying for you? I'm like, kind of like, I don't want to have a drippy nose while I'm telling people the experience of it. I'm just now in my mind saying it's just the liquid and it's not going to be the blood, because that is weird that all of a sudden just your whole face just bursts like with blood everywhere. But I really didn't tell many people because I thought it was so weird and I didn't know what it meant. If you Google any symptom, though, this is what I've learned, not to Google anything. You're not going to find the spiritual cause of it. It's always going to be like you're dying. So that was something that I didn't want to do, because after I Googled clear liquid pouring from your nose, it was a sign of leaking brain fluid. And I was like, I can't read up on any of this. I'm not leaking brain fluid. This is because I'm going through an awakening and I'm raising my vibration. And that's what, this has to be from. So that's the first thing that that I wanted to say to you, that was an experience that I probably should have added in, but I forgot about it. And also Philip. We touched on that we needed to discuss that. And
we're going to get to Philip. I want to share one thought before we do on what you're talking about. Number one, it is important because you're in the awakening process. You understood the nature of the vibrational nature of the universe and consciousness. Were you aware of imagining creating reality? Because what I want to say is about Googling around and I wonder what's wrong with me and you're asking questions. You are literally accepting suggestions to yourself. I'm very careful on my social media. I find myself, I can scroll my Facebook page for about 30 seconds. So I'm like, what am I doing? And I have to shut it off because I literally just looked at maybe dozens, maybe 100 worth of suggestions that should I accept them and dwell upon them? They're like seeds that get planted in my consciousness. And it's not a fearful thing, but it's being wise. It's what the Bible calls being sober. And I am alert and I'm aware of what I'm dwelling upon, because guess what? I fear the Lord in the sense of not afraidness, but a deep respect and a reverence for the all creative power that is the imagination.
Yes. I don't have social media for that aspect. When I decided to get off of it, it was because it was very, I didn't like constantly seeing all the separation and the divide that everyone is in. There is a shadow aspect to every single experience that people are having. There's always going to be another interpretation, and I can see the symbolic representation of what people experience based on whatever it is, whether it's collectively or individually. So that was one of my decisions. I'm not going to have social media because I don't even want to see the shit that people are posting about. Not from a judgment standpoint, from an impression standpoint. I don't want it to spark any feeling for me. I don't want to think about that stuff.
But you were in faith in that sense. You were secure in your consciousness to not pursue the doctor route. And there's nothing wrong for somebody who is. If somebody's conscience is violated, they need to stay true that you can pursue a parallel track of faith, is my personal opinion. But if your conscience is violated and thinking, man, I need to go to a doctor, and you can't shake that, the feeling's not natural for you to understand the symbolic nature of it, then you need to honor what that is, in my opinion. But what I want to highlight is the fact that you were guarding your heart. We talk about living from the heart and dwelling in the heart. You were guarding your heart by not accepting some of these Google suggestions, number one. And this, you recognize, even if not on your surface level, when you and I talked about it, recognizing that symbolic event that happened to manifest physically and things like that do to represent your birth from the skull. Neville gives a wonderful teaching. I can't place the the name of the lecture off the top of my head, but he mentions it a couple times about the napkin that was placed beside the body where Jesus was resurrected from the tomb. Again, the symbolic representation of what happens when God awakes in man and as the man in whom he wakes. And in the original Greek, that the napkin is the placenta, which you've given birth. I've watched my wife give birth. You know, the placenta isn't necessarily a pretty sight. There's a lot of blood involved, right? I mean, but the life is in the blood. So there's something deeper that goes on in that space. And my last thought that I want to bring out, if anybody's interested, you can go on YouTube and do a search for Frank Carter. Just search for Frank Carter and Neville.
When you sent me that like was really, really great, because I never heard that before. So
was that incredible? It's actually chilling. I don't get chills a lot anymore, but I got chills listening to it. Frank Carter, if you don't know, was Neville's limo driver or his chauffeur. I don't know if it was a limo, but Neville didn't have a driver's license, so Frank would drive him everywhere. And Frank was the last person to see Neville alive, and was there the morning of his death when Neville's daughter called for him to come to the house. And I won't give everybody a spoiler alert because I want everybody to listen to it and think they should. But Neville literally had a literal napkin on his face when the coroner arrived, because he had lost so much blood. In fact, he made the comment, I don't think he has a drop of blood left in his body. And it was because he had some kind of a hemorrhage or an aneurysm from his head. and they had a napkin covering his face. And again, for those of you that are keen on the symbolism between John's account of Jesus from the tomb and the napkin and that and what Jamie is describing, it's pretty impacting. Again, folks, it's the stuff that it will scar you in a sense. I talked in my last episode about he that's joined to a harlot. This is graphic imagery. Jesus being crucified on a cross. This is all stuff that is indelibly impressed on your mind, so that you never forget who you are, and you learn to respect this law, and you learn to dwell in love, because it's vital in that sense, right? Because God is love, and it drives you towards the rediscovery and the essence of who you are. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that out, and I don't want anybody to be afraid. Can you just?
No, I was not.
Yeah.
I wasn't afraid when any of this happened. So that's one thing. I was so curious to what it was. I was on the floor, like, what is this substance? Like, what? Like, and it was very strange because it was like a clear liquid, almost like a stickiness to it. Exactly the way that I described it to you, with like a woman breaking water and that gush feeling like that. And it like from a movie, when you could hear it hit the floor, that's exactly what happened. I had no idea what happened. It was the weirdest thing, but now I'm on the floor feeling it. I was not concerned. I was more like, I'm doing something right. I need to go back into my notes though, because I definitely wrote down these experiences when I had them. I don't know whether or not this was before or after I had the vision of the baby. And if it happened after, which I could understand, it was because I totally misunderstood the vision of the baby. So that would have been another like
getting your attention, like, hello, this is what's happening to you.
You're not having the baby. At the time when I seen the vision of the baby, I thought it was like an angel baby that I should be bringing in, and I was like, no way am I having another baby. Like, that's too many. I have a lot of kids. I don't want any more kids. So I totally dismissed it, and I was just like, I love this baby, but I could love that baby from afar. Like, it was, I had no awareness that that was my own self-birthing, So
but you got to that, and that's the point, folks, is this is all by grace. God is divine intelligence, right? He's divine consciousness. He finds a way to get the point across. So getting a little lag on my Zoom. There we go.
Yes.
All right.
You're okay.
So let's get to Philip, because I love this one. I got excited when he told me about Philip. And again, this is the way, the promise. It's the divine pattern man, Jesus Christ erupting. He's going to do it through all of us. It's a similar pattern, but it's divinely unique, right? So it can happen very uniquely. So I hadn't heard anybody meeting Philip. We're going to talk about what that means in a moment, but go ahead and share your experience first.
I did not know. I do not read the Bible. I told you this. I had no idea what these experiences were. I had no idea who Philip even was when it happened. All I know is that I had a dream. It was a lucid dream. I was with a group of friends. Not real life friends. I don't know who they were in my dream, but they were friends, and they brought it to my attention that there was a man staring at me. So when I looked up and I seen the man, and all of that was said was, that guy is staring at you. So when I looked up to see it, I said, oh, that's just Philip. I have to go with him to meet the father. I didn't say I have to go with him to meet his father. All it was I'm going with him to meet the father, and me and him, it was like a reunion almost, but I knew that I didn't really know him, but I knew him in this dream. It was like a reunion. I walked over to him and we walked away together. And it was not far after that I had my experience where I knew that God was pretending to be me. But that was first. And I had no idea who Philip was. Well, I know that I said the words, that's Philip. He's taking me to meet the Father.
And see, what's fun about some of this is, I forget how Neville puts it exactly, but in eternity, time isn't linear. We're talking about beyond time and space. And I always feel like this is the way God gives himself these little Easter eggs, right? Something that it happens at a point in your timeline, physical timeline here, but the meaning or the understanding doesn't come until later. And I want to, so you didn't know who Philip was, is my point. And then you found out later who he is. I'm going to quote from Neville's book, Your Faith is Your Fortune, which I'm guessing you've read. Do you know that one, Jamie?
Yes. You know how I found out about Philip, though? I just want to say this. I found out about Philip when I was understanding the spheres of consciousness and the realms of consciousness, or the 12 disciples. So that's when I learned about Philip. the name Philip from the 12 disciples as being a part of our own consciousness. And I was like, oh my God, I remember the day that I met Philip. I remember him bringing me to the Father. And that's what the Philip is explained, that he brings you to the Father. And I was like, oh my God, I had that experience. Like that was it. That was me meeting Philip, and he was going to bring me. So that's how I found out about it. But it was only afterwards. It was only after I read that Neville thing, which was not that long ago. I'm only reading Neville less than a year.
Yeah, that's exciting. I love it. So I'm going to read this for anybody who doesn't know it, especially because so many of us were raised with the understanding of the Bible being secular history, right? We're reading about, historical characters that lived and walked the earth, but really has such a deeper meaning. The psychological meaning is fabulous, let alone the spiritual meaning. We're going to talk about that. I've heard that from some of you on the comments. You want to get more into that? We will. I'll probably get into that with Nico. That is a passion of Nico's as well. And so we're going to talk about that here. But listen from chapter 18 of Your Faith is Your Fortune, just a little excerpt. He starts with a quote from Matthew 10:1. It says, when he had called unto him his 12 disciples. So it's Christ, who you are. Remember, that's the essence of who you are, is calling these 12 disciples forth. So Jamie is calling Philip forth. And he gave them power against unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. Remember, nothing is impossible, folks. We're talking about the unrestricted all power of God. Listen to this from Neville. The 12 disciples represent the 12 qualities of mind which can be controlled and disciplined by man. If disciplined, they will at all times obey the command of the one who has disciplined them. These 12 qualities in man are potentials of every mind. Undisciplined, their actions resemble more the actions of a mob than they do of a trained and disciplined army. All the storms and confusions that engulf man can be traced directly to these 12 ill-related characteristics of the human mind in its present slumbering state. Until they are awakened and disciplined, they will permit every rumor and sensuous emotion to move them. That goes back to those little unruly disciples that are condemning another, right? Oh, well, I wonder what she's judging me. I know the whole thing you were talking about, the way women do that, guys do that with each other. These are all corollaries to our own self, judging ourselves, right? So we have to control and discipline these emotions. So I'm going to read the fifth quality, who is Philip. The fifth quality to be called to discipleship is Philip. This one asked to be shown the Father. The awakened man knows that the Father is the state of consciousness in which man dwells, and that this state or Father can be seen only as it is expressed. He knows himself to be the perfect likeness or image of that consciousness with which he is identified. So he declares, no man has at any time seen my Father, but I, the Son, who dwell in his bosom, have revealed him. And so he goes on. If you haven't read this chapter or this book, I highly recommend it. I have a link on my website, by the way, Imagining God, under the resources for this book, if you want to read the PDF. But it's fabulous. And I know I'm talking a lot, Jamie. I want you to hear this.
I enjoyed that because I learned the qualities of the mind, not from the disciple standpoint. And that's why I love listening to you when you're speaking about that, because that is not it was not my area. The Bible was not my area. I learned it a totally different way. The qualities of the mind. And I have even written about it before I even understood it, how the spheres of our consciousness, once they, and it's beautiful because it was, I said this to you before, it's like Neville's words could almost be my own. So when I had described what happens when we meet the 13th, when we meet the one sitting in the center, the 12, there's 12, and then when they are in harmony with each other, it opens up to the 13th. The 13th, which is the Christ, is the one. So now it's no longer the 12 plus 1 that will equal the 13. It's really just one, and it's you as Christ, or the Christ within, the awakened within. But it's like harmonizing the spheres of consciousness, or what Neville calls them as you know, harmonizing the 12 qualities of the mind, the 12 disciples. They're no longer an angry mob. Now they're working together as friends. And because they're now working together, they reveal the one sitting in the center. So I had written a post about this because it was so interesting to me, because someone came to me last year asking about the 13th astrology sign that's hidden from us. And I said, no, that's all symbolic. It's symbolic of the one that is hidden, you at the center, the Christ at the center. And it's the same thing that happens within our mind. We then project it externally. That's why the number 13 is symbolic to me. I see 13 everywhere. That's like my number 13. And it took me a while to get to that point to understand why it was so symbolic, but that's exactly the reason why. The 12 open up to the one is the 13th, which there is no 13, it's just all. So
you are the 13, but it's such powerful stuff, and it comes to you in your own perfect way. And I do get the sense when it comes to these disciples, there are certain ones that you have a proclivity towards. Like Neville speaks of himself in that Frank Carter lecture at the end of his life. I mean, he knew he was about to exit this world. You'll hear that very clearly. He told Frank he was about to go. And he says of himself, well, I am Judas. And Judas is the one who reveals the Christ. He betrays the messianic secret is what he does. And he commits suicide in the field, which in the Orient, you know, was an honorable thing. But the point being, Neville had this particular role that he played where he related himself as Judas. It might be that Philip is just a close companion of yours, so to speak, in that role of the one that leads people to the Father. I mean, I see the life in your eyes and in your voice as you speak about all of this stuff on your subreddit. It's beautiful stuff. So I'm excited in that regard to discover a little bit more of who you are, at least this trip around the sun, you know?
Yeah. And I also have a thing for James, both of them in there, because I really could understand it. Like I could really understand what that is, like the judgment aspect of it. And you know, bringing us to that, like there is no righteous judging. Like you can't judge in a good way. There is no such thing as that. And that's how I really feel. That's what I believe. If you're judging another, there is really no great way to judge someone. It's just an aspect of you. And I've told you this, there's plenty of things that I want to judge on, and then I could catch myself like, all right, but you know what? I could see why they're doing it this way. I could see why someone's saying those words, or how come they're acting this way. So it really does, it doesn't allow you to judge anyone. It's the weirdest thing. I know it sounds crazy. It just doesn't, my mind does not allow me to judge somebody. It's not that
well, that's not part of the divine nature. Yeah, God is love.
No, and
so there's no
I'm like,
room for
I
that.
try to. I'm like, I want to get this conversation out because I'm still human. And I'm like, I can't believe this person is charging X amount of dollars for this kind of service or this kind of knowledge or whatever. And then I'm like, but everyone has to pay their bills. And he puts a lot of time and effort and he deserves to get paid. And if someone is coming to that person to pay that money, then that's the space that they're in. And that is the eye. That is one of the eyes that we have to come through. The 7 eyes of God, yeah, we will come out of that. You will no longer seek that external savior. You will know that you could do it yourself. So it's like, even when I want to be that person, or I want to just like get in it, I can't. It just doesn't happen. It's like the words will come out and then I like backtrack. I'm like, okay, no, like
I'm the same exact way. There's just no room in love. Everybody loves John 3:16. For God so loved the world, he gave us his only begotten son. He gave us himself. But the next verse is so glorious. He says, because he didn't come to judge the world, or he didn't come to condemn it, but that the world through him might be saved. And so that's what we do. We don't have to save the world as far as outwardly doing it, but my imagination reconciles all of it in love, because I see that one glorious being that is God revealing himself to himself through us all. And I see that in all, even, you know, my seeming enemy. So it is a beautiful thing. But I wanted you to hear this. We haven't talked about this one. I thought this would bless you and everybody listening. This is from Acts chapter 8. And this was just on my heart this morning when I woke up, talking about Philip, verse 26. Listen to this. The angel of the Lord, we were talking about angels, and I'd like to get there next if we could. The angel of the Lord spake unto Philip, saying, arise. So first there is the divine messenger giving the instruction, arise. And if you read it in the Greek, by the way, people that want to study the Bible more deeply, I always recommend, I'm reading from it right now, blueletterbible.org. It's you can get different translations. I read the King James, and then there's a little box at the top called Strong's. Well, James Strong is the one that translated the Greek and the Hebrew, which the Old Testament's written in, New Testament Greek. You can click on any word and get the meaning of it. So Philip, by the way, means lover of horses. Well, the horse is the symbol of the mind, the lover of the mind, right? Lover, and the meek will inherit the earth comes from like a horse that has learned to submit itself to its rider to become effective and powerful for both it and its rider. So Philip is the lover of horses, lover of the mind. The first message is arise. And it literally in the Greek means to rise as one from the dead, is part of that subtle shade of meaning, to resurrect. So here's the command. This is what's being spoken. Jamie, this is why you and I are here on this podcast, why I'm doing this podcast. Because yes, I'm speaking to myself, first of all, and then also to anybody that finds us. It is time to wake up. That's my intro. We're here to arise. Come on, it's time to wake up from the slumber of death, of being sound asleep. So the angel speaks to Philip saying, arise and go towards the south unto the way that goes down from Jerusalem unto Gaza, which is the desert. So he sends him into the desert. Now, there's a whole lot of meaning that I don't have time to get into. I like to circle back. All I can say is dig into the Greek on any of these words that jump out at you. It's very revealing stuff. It says that he arose then. So he's arising. He's arising in consciousness. So really, this is really when Jesus talks about waiting in the upper room to your clothed with power on the high. These are all, anytime the Bible talks about the upper room or rising, it's always about this ascent in consciousness, Jacob's ladder. And so it says he arose and he went, and behold, a man of Ethiopia, a eunuch of great authority. Well, a eunuch, if you click on that in the Greek, it says this: a bed keeper, a bed guard, a superintendent of the bed chamber. So Neville talks about getting in these sleepy, drowsy states. Folks, these guys are telling you allegory to help you understand what are the realities of the mind, of the human psyche, which is the mind of Christ. That's the only mind that there is. There's the only consciousness that there is, right? One mind, one love. So Philip is now interacting in this sleepy, dreamy state with a eunuch who's the bed keeper under Candace, the queen of the Ethiopians. And again, I don't have time to dig into all of these, but these all have these subtle, wonderful meanings. Just look it up for yourself. And this guy had charge of all of her treasure. So it says, in Christ lie hidden all of the treasures, right? That pertain to us. So he meets this one who has all the treasure. He had just come to Jerusalem to worship. So here's a eunuch. Here's another being coming from a place of religious worship, which is my story. I'm coming from that place. And Philip is now leading him, right? He's the one that reveals the Father. And that's exactly what he's doing in the story in the book of Acts. And it says that this eunuch was returning and he was sitting in his chariot. Well, that's you, your individualized vehicle of consciousness, your individualized God self, God identifying himself as you. And he was reading Isaiah the prophet. And then the Spirit said unto Philip, go near and join thyself to his chariot. So there's like a joining together. So Philip came to you, Jamie, and joined himself to your chariot, literally. So I'm reading the story that
why
you
I'm like crazy, though, is because I remember during that time that I was having I don't even know. It was like there was horses, but like horses, like almost like a carriage, and the wheels on the carriage, and it was a weird thing. Like, but they weren't like regular horses like we have here. It was like more mystical type. I don't want to say unicorn, but it was like they looked like mystical type of things. So you're saying this, and I'm like, wait a minute, this reminds me of like the dreams that I would have of these things. And then I had looked them up and I was like, okay, that's Ezekiel's, like that was from Ezekiel. I know that. I had that vision of it. Like it was, we do dream scripture, we live out scripture. So I'm not even like a Bible person. You're reading the Bible and I'm like, where is my Bible? I don't even think I have a Bible. And I'm like, wait a minute, horses, I've had that. I've had those experiences in my dream.
and this is just what life is like, right? When you're waking up, is that things begin to have meaning. You begin to remember dreams that you forgot you had. Neville says it exactly right. It's like a remote region of the soul. He says some people had the birth of the baby and they don't even remember it, and all of a sudden it comes back to your remembrance. So there's a whole nother life. You and I talked about this a little bit before we started recording. There's a whole nother life that we live in those heavenly spheres. We're in eternity now. And I believe that when you do fall asleep at night, that's where you're going. You're on some level of the, your eternal conscious body that exists now. But I love that on the spot as we're recording, you're being reminded of a part of your dream. So there's Philip, the lover of horses, and he approaches a chariot, which is pulled by horses, obviously. And he joins himself to this eunuch, and he's reading Isaiah. And that also catch the revelation too, folks that are listening, realize that Philip is being led by the Spirit. There's only one Spirit, and it's also happening in real time. It's not like God laid out a full map of saying, hey, you're going to go meet a eunuch and you're going to go baptize him. Like Philip didn't know any of that. He just went. This is a lot of this life, guys, is about living in divine harmony, living in sync with the Spirit. Paul calls it walking in the Spirit. It's like a divine synchronicity. You can feel this divine rhythm. You can imagine maybe like a drop in the ocean is part of that divine rhythm of the wave as it begins to fold and return to the ocean, which is then a part of the rhythm of the tides as they ebb and flow, which is again part of the rhythm of the whole ocean itself. So you can feel this whole, all these distinct little parts. God distinguishes himself, right? All the glory that is his own being, his own self, and yet it appears individualized sometimes as a drop, the wave, the tide, etc. And my point in that is learning to live in the divine flow, which is happening now. It is here and now. That's all you have, is this eternal now. You're living in heaven right now, right? And so notice the progression here. Philip is being led from one step to another. And this is where that faith walk comes in. I'm trusting that as I take a step, I'm going to stand upon the water. I'm not going to sink. And if I do sink, it's okay. We all sink at times. What does Peter do when he's sinking? He cries out for Jesus to save him, reaches out, and Jesus picks him up and he saves him, which again is the Christ. That is your ascended, awakened, true self. So anyway, I just want to finish the story because I feel like it's going to feed a lot of people's soul, including my own as I'm reading it. So that's why I encourage people, Jamie, I'm going to encourage you, get the Blue Letter Bible app. It's an app, and read the Bible. It'll feed you. It's beautiful. So anyway, you get the idea. He's being led as he goes. He joins himself to the chariot, and then Philip ran to him, it says. So there's a sense of movement. There's like an omni action in the God's moving on all these different levels of currents. All of our life streams are all weaving in and out of each other. It's a beautiful thing. It's a living tapestry of God himself. And so Philip now runs to him, and he heard him read the prophet Isaiah, and he says, do you understand what you read? And the eunuch says, well, how can I, except some man should guide me? And he desired Philip that he would come up and sit with him. So there it is. Philip is the guide. So you literally experienced Philip, the guide who took you, right, and revealed to the Father. And you can read the rest of the story, those of you that want to. I've spent enough time on that. But there's all kinds of revelation in there. And what I want to say is those of you that feel bored or just apathetic in life, maybe you go to church even and you're bored. Listen, it's because you are not meant to hear from God through another man. Through a manifestation of God. You are destined and meant to feed from the Spirit of God directly. And a lot of this life is getting revelation. It's getting divine knowledge that unfolds within you. And I have to say, it gets to the place where your cup runneth over and you just can't contain it anymore. And so again, it's not this Messiah complex where I feel like I have to save the world. There's nothing to save because there's nothing but the Messiah. There's nothing but God, who is divine imagination playing out this glorious play. And so rather, my cup is running over with this love. It's running over with revelation. It's running over with the ability to encourage a sister or a brother or a friend or a bum on the street. It doesn't matter. And so it's because my cup runs over. We love to share and talk about this stuff. So anyway, I hope that encourages you though, Jamie, because I thought of Philip in Acts.
I have to tell you something. So you know that I don't come from this space, right? But as you're saying this, I come from a totally different space. I come from the symbolic space where I could just see what's happening externally in our reality based on what's coming up for people within the soul. It's unconscious though, because we don't know it. It's deeper regions and we just unconsciously play these things out. So obviously, I told you before that my thing was like astrology and I could see the symbols and stuff. Last year, on June 21st, we had a solar eclipse. This eclipse passed over the equator and made a perfect line over the New Jerusalem in Ethiopia, which is exactly what you were just saying from that story, how he was going to Ethiopia and whatever. So now these 11 churches in Ethiopia, last year, we had this eclipse pass over the 11 churches in Ethiopia. And that was a pretty big deal for me when I was like in that space, like seeing all the symbolism, because it was like the resurrection of the spiritual consciousness of the children of God. It was like, that's what it was for me, that's how I was able to see it. Like, okay, so now some people are coming to this, awakening them within themselves. And now we have this eclipse path directly over these churches in Ethiopia. You know, we are the Jerusalem. There is no new Jerusalem. Like, we are the Jerusalem. It was like a totally beautiful thing. And I had no idea that it was connected to Philip's story whatsoever. And you just read that. So that was really cool.
That's amazing. That's the beauty of this whole thing. You know, God takes care of himself. And so he'll reveal exactly what we need to know. And I just, again, encourage, like Daniel, who sought the Lord for the interpretation. For those listening, when you begin to have these dreams, and you begin to have these experiences, you have these serendipitous moments, meeting somebody in your physical 3D world, whatever it is, just contemplate it, contemplate the meaning. It'll come to you. And it's seemingly an endless well of revelation if you want it to be. So, all right, let's move on a little bit, Jamie. It's all beautiful. It's good stuff. I know we're getting a little long on time. You wanted to address some things from your subreddit or some of your viewers,
Yes.
or anything just in particular on your heart. So I want you to just take some freedom and go ahead and speak into that.
One of those things is what happens after here. I know that that's like a question that most people are very interested in, like what happens after we leave here. I don't know the answer to that. I have not experienced it for myself yet. So even if Neville had spoke about it and he knows that, or he had written that he does not come back here, that this was the end for him, having to relive life this way because he had, went through the awakening or whatever it was. I believe that as well. So that is also my personal truth. I know that for myself as well. I've already completed it. The whole purpose of being alive is to go through this awakening to the self, awakening as God, as you. So I don't know what happens after. I know that Neville says that people restore to life. And this was something that I had a lot of messages on. If we restore to life in the next life at 20 years old, what about this life? Did I live my first 20 years here? Like, how does that work? Because at what point are you actually really born? How could they be another life, like at 20 years old, someplace else? I don't know. I don't know that answer. I have not had that experience yet, where I'm able to go to these different places in my imagination and meet people that had passed away and they are restored to life at 20. What I'm able to do, which a lot of people can do, is they can connect to their dead relatives or friends, and they're able to do that, whether it's in meditation or in dreams. But I have not been able to do that where my grandmother is now restored at 20 years old and I'm able to see her. I don't know that answer yet. I'm hoping that one day that I can, because that would be really cool. But Neville, another thing is that he shared a lot of these experiences so far after he went through the experiences that where, talking like listening to him speak in 1950 something, right? And then, he experienced it in 1920 something, let's just say, or however the timing was, he had so much more time. So I don't know that. I don't know where I go after this. I don't know where anyone else goes after this. I just know that I don't do this all over again. I reached that.
That's a good start.
I fulfilled this. And
Neville does talk about those in eternity that contemplate the world of death. And I do have the sense of, first of all, part of it is meant to be a mystery and an adventure that you get to discover what's next. I also have the just general sense that you do come into a full realization of being that one being who is God, and all and are that protein being that can become whatever you want at will and insert yourself into this grand play and visit different timelines and time frames and scenarios, and probably do exactly what we're doing now, which is help awaken our brothers, right? I find myself doing that when I do lucid dream, which means not just that a dream is clear and I remember it, but I'm awake inside the dream and I realize that I'm dreaming. Instinctually, though, without even trying, I'm not making an effort to do it, I immediately begin to tell people that we're dreaming. And I begin to talk to them about who the real Jesus is. And I begin to tell them about how imagining creates reality. And I begin to demonstrate it. I've learned in my dreams to levitate under control. I used to be really out of control. I remember speaking outside. I was in a dream narrative. So I didn't know I was dreaming, but my dream was that I was in a small band of musicians inside a church, like I have been for a lot of my life in ministry. I love music. I did a lot of praise and worship music. And I love that. And so I was with some people that some of whom are familiar in my regular life, that I know them. And then I began to realize that I was dreaming, and I began to tell them about imagination. And all of a sudden we're outside the building, and they're looking at me very intently, and they're listening. And I begin to demonstrate, and I actually, under control, levitate, and I do a backflip, and I land with perfect control. And that's just one example of like many different ways that I begin teaching in my dreams. Some of them cross over into what do feel like other worlds. Neville talks about that. He talks about in his lectures where if you're in a lucid dream, to grab onto a solid object, not a living being like an animal, but if you grab onto a fence post or whatever it is, a doorknob, it'll actually pull you into that world. And it's as tactile and sensory vivid as this world is right here. And I found myself in some of those places feeling trapped like he did. Like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get back to my whatever my other life is. Like, it feels like it's so remotely, I can't even describe how far away this world seems. Probably as far as when you wake up from a dream here and that world seems far away. That's what it feels like when I'm there in relation to this world. So I feel like part of what does happen next is you're going to enter into some more of that role that because love is self-sacrificing. I think a part of it is, yes, all of your dreams and whatever you want are realized, but as is that overflow of your cup, where now you're also reaching into other spaces and timelines for your brothers, all of whom we know in eternity. I feel like in eternity, we all do know each other. And Neville says just that, right? We are the Elohim.
Yeah, this whole topic like just makes me do like a spin within my own mind, because for a pretty long time I couldn't figure out whether or not we were even really here. So I had said this to you. That was real for me though. Like, am I imagining being alive right now? Like, am I really present in this moment? If I already feel and this was just my own personal experience. I went through a difficult time with not feeling present, not really feeling here, feeling like I was in two places at once, feeling like this reality was just as much as the dream that I just woke up from. And I have a real life here, so that was difficult. Everyone wanted like hello, like get with the program, like you have people to take care of, you have a life to live. And I would just, some days I couldn't even get up. I was just sitting in a chair for the most of the day because I couldn't function here. And it wasn't because I felt like I didn't belong here. It was like, where is the rest of me? It's like I never came back from wherever it was that I was there, or wherever it was that I went to. That's what I would say. Sometimes I picked up knowledge, and I would just like, someone would have a conversation and I knew the answer. And I'm like, I don't even know where I know that answer from. I am not a doctor, but I already know that this part of your lungs affects this. Like, it was that part of my experience was very wacky, I'm going to say, because no one else around me was experiencing that. And I would try to explain it. Like, did you ever just sit down in a chair and feel like you can't get up because you're not there? And they'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? But that was real for me. And this whole context of what you're saying brings me to that point where I would sit and contemplate, how do we know that we're even really here? If this place feels real and my dreams feel real, then where do I really exist? Just because I feel like I'm alive here, how do I know that I am? And then I would say, imagine, this is when it all turned into like a thing for me. Imagine if I am someplace in the future dreaming of myself here at this present time. And then my mind would just spin even more like, well, what if I'm not even in that present time in the future, and I'm already sitting in the throne, or I'm already one with God, and I'm just pretending to be here all along. And that was just like a thing that like I couldn't get over for a long time.
One of the reasons that I want to have this conversation is because there are a lot of people watching that feel exactly that.
Yes, I know, because they reach out to me.
And you've heard me reference, I called it the existential crisis after proving the law and having, success with it. Also failure, by the way, I'm not perfect in it. Certainly Neville acknowledged, the same, but going through exactly what you're saying. And so I feel like this is an important conversation, that sense of disassociation. One thing that really helped me, number one, is wherever I did find myself, whether it's dreaming or on this level, is to be all there. There's a time of those experiences being so blissful really, that you almost feel like you're pining for them. Like, I want to get back to whatever dimension that was that I was just in, because that was incredible. I've had lucid dreams where I meet people that I know them somehow, but my conscious mind doesn't know how I know them. And there's just the deepest sense of love. I remember walking down one of the first times I felt sensory uh reality in a dream, and it was again, I reference this fence post because that's what was there, and I grabbed a fence post and I'm examining the wood, and it was 4K ultra high D quality, and I could feel it. As I'm rubbing my fingers along it, all of a sudden I could feel the breeze on my face, and there was a guy. He looked like he was in his 20s, a black guy, really good looking guy, and the funny thing is he was black, but he was all light, and everything that defined the what am I trying to say? Everything that had definition in the form, from the street to this gentleman to like a barn style house that was off to the side, everything was light, and even the outline of everything was light, but yet the light was delineating itself with a different quality of light, is the only way to say it. And all I remember is like a magnet being drawn to this brother, and we embraced with this just the purest love, like the just the deepest joy, love. It was like we knew each other, but yet I came back waking up like longing to be with this guy and talk to him and have these kind of conversations, and I have no clue who he is. So I feel like again, that was part of why I took a long period of silence. Like, I don't know really what's happening. I'm like, and what I learned that really helped ground me is wherever I did find myself, whether it's in a quote unquote alternate reality or expanded state of awareness, I call it, or this state of awareness, is to be all there. Right? If it's family time with the kids, I had to learn, like, I got to stop thinking and wondering about what just happened the night before. I'm all there with my kids. Or if it's date night with the wife, I'm all there. If it's with my clients, I sell real estate. It's to be all there and to give my best, and to come back to that place of love and a reminder there is nothing but God. And with that is that sense of deep, deep being anchored, right? There's a security there. There's no other foundation that can be laid, we know, than other that which is Jesus Christ, who is your imagination. And so there's safety in it. There's actually a safety in it. Even if somebody's listening that's never experienced this, like, you guys are crazy. When you're in it, you're not. It's actually the safest place in the world, because the answer, Jamie, what you just said is it's all real. So yes, it is just a dream, but yet it is real. You are Adam asleep in the garden, dreaming all of this. And yet the second Adam is Christ, who rises as the master of those 12 disciples, who takes control of that unruly mind. And I can begin to dream lovely dreams now. And the beauty of the law is you're dreaming. You're now, it's the same way that this is what I wanted to talk about just a little bit, you and I, because you said you stopped having those types of experiences. What I want to say is, when you do feel somewhat restless on this level and like, okay, what else is there? You can lucid dream on purpose. You can astral project on purpose. You can arise, just as Philip did, was told by the angel. I believe he's talking on a deeper level about he rose out of his body in his bedchamber. His spirit is traveling. In fact, the end of that story, which I didn't get to, is he baptizes the eunuch, and he says he disappeared. He was called away in the spirit. And so he's talking about actually traveling in the spirit. What I want to say is, one of the techniques is the same technique as the law. Get in a sleepy, drowsy state, begin to imagine a scene, begin to feel yourself into a reality that you would like to experience in the not too distant future. And the same way that law works here on this level for objects in this world, which you need, we all need food to eat. We need shelter. We need loving relationships. None of that is wrong. As Neville says, have it all. But you can also use it for these other things, including influencing what kind of dream you're going to have, or what kind of place you're going to travel to in the spirit. If you miss a loved one, well, this is how you can call them. You bring them before your mind's eye. I've done it without trying, but my best friend, Danny, who died of a drug overdose, I'm going to tell this in an episode, his whole long saga. I had a series of 6 or 7 dreams over the period of 2 months of a complete redemption story of my friend Danny in a dark, dingy place, dingy environments, reflecting his state of consciousness, all the way into a glorious one, as I began to teach him about who Jesus is, that he is Jesus, that his imagination is God, and is incredible. So I feel like you can do these things on purpose, is my point.
No, yes, you definitely can. Definitely can. I haven't had any like of the mystical type of experiences since, and we spoke about this beforehand. Like, I had the experience where I was bringing things from the dream state or the meditation state into this state. One of them was, something on my foot that I thought was a robotic spider type of thing in my dream, and I took it off my foot because it was trying to go inside of my foot. And I woke up in the morning. I remember my dream clearly, lucid, clearly removing it and tossing it, just like removing this thing that was like trying to go in my foot, removing it and throwing it. And I woke up in the morning and I had a hole in the bottom of my foot. So we can bring things back and forth. Well, the experience of it could be so real. How could I explain that? I didn't step or anything when I went to bed. Like I didn't have it the night before, and it wasn't painful. I took a picture of it, so it was real. And people I spoke to about it, I'm like, I don't know what the hell happened to me last night, but and I would explain it exactly the way that happened. Like there was something on my foot and I took it off, and then I had a hole in the bottom of my foot. So Neville, when he's talking about his experience, that they are so real, and you're able to touch things and grab things, or you're swimming and you're able to, feel the water, it is real that way, because my consciousness just took it to that point where it was like something on me. But had I have been someplace else, I know that I could have done that just as well, or experienced it that way. Sorry about my tissue, but my nose
It's okay.
is running.
That's really, I mean, that's like some, I don't, it's something out of a movie, right? Where you dream it and you come back with it here. I mean, that's kind of, it's stunning, really. Does that have meaning to you?
I don't know, because I woke up and I was nervous. When I woke up, I was nervous. The first thing I did when I woke up was I looked around my room to see if this thing was in my room, because it was so real to me when it happened. And then when I looked, I had my sock on, and I took my sock off, and then there was the mark and the hole. And I immediately was like talking to my friends, like, I don't know what happened. And I was concerned, like, do you think I brought this thing back with me? Like, could we have done that? Could I have done that? Like, no one really understood, because they were like, what are you talking about? A robotic looking spider that is trying to what? I'm like, I don't know, attach itself to me. But I woke up with the mark, and I remember removing it and throwing it. And the first thing I did when I woke up was looked around my room to see if it was still there. That's how real it was.
Dude, that's pretty crazy. What I want to, what I think will help you, and I'm talking to myself as I say this, and obviously everybody watching and listening, is just like in scripture, these are all personifications of different aspects of your own self, of your own consciousness. The 12 disciples are all you. And we're reading about Philip and the eunuch. They're all different aspects of your own self. But the foot in scripture is symbolic of your understanding, right? God's promise to Joshua is everywhere the soles of your feet tread, that have I given to you. And so even though we know spiders are good in the sense of what they do and how they spin webs and get rid of other insects, obviously that's something that to most of us represents fear. We're afraid of spiders. I think that one of the top fears, along with public speaking and death, things like that for people. So to me, this is just me thinking out loud with you on the spot, but it has to me a sense of you're ridding your understanding, the soles of your feet. You're extracting that which was calls you fear or trepidation in your life, because we know in God it says his perfect love casts out all fear. So I'm guessing it has something to do with your understanding being purged or something of that nature.
I also want to say that at that time where I was in my consciousness, and I have explained this to you, I was in that extraterrestrial space, because that is within the hierarchy of creation, that extra terrain, that the deeper regions within our soul, whether it be alien or the alienated parts of us, or the angels or their angles of light, or the extraterrestrials, extra terrain. I was in that realm. So I was in that realm of star being and star seed and light being. And this was just a version of that. Why it was a spider, I don't know why it was a spider, but it was like an AI spider. It was like a robotic type of spider that I didn't want on me. So that's the space that I was in when I had the lucid dream about it. So it does make sense to me, because it would be my understanding, like, get rid of that. Like, obviously I had to go through that for my experience, but that's not where to stay. Don't get caught up in that level of awareness, or that area within consciousness where I'm believing myself to be an alien and everyone else is just humans. And that's what we do. We're like, okay, this group versus this group, or me versus you. That separation exists within all the layers, or the hierarchy, or the realms, or the dimensions. There's so many words for the same thing, but that's exactly it. It's all the separation between you and another.
So don't get caught up in the manifestation, in other words, because that's where you get trapped, right? It's like a trap. You get stuck within the materiality of it. I'm studying what is the spider, or whatever that manifestation is, whatever we're experiencing. Which, by the way, again, makes me think of programming. We've all been conditioned, programmed, from the time we're born. Somebody gives us a name on a birth certificate. Well, does that define us because somebody gave us that name? Do you have that name in eternity, or is that just a piece of paper that is on this earth level? No, I'm that eternal awareness.
Or you chose your name, and that divine idea was imprinted upon your parents because you were in there, and they gave you that name because it was something that was symbolic or whatever it is. That's how I want to look at it. I want to look at it like my name is Jamie and my father, his name is James, and that makes so much sense to me because now I'm coming to the discipleship and I'm reading about James, the righteous judge, and it was like all that. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
That's
like,
amazing. You gave yourself the name.
Yeah.
You're the angel visiting yourself from the future. How's that? You're the alien.
That whole concept though. I was stuck on that for so long.
That'll get you back to another existential crisis. Yes, if you dwell on that.
I was stuck on that. And because people were doing these past life hypnosis sessions and like quantum hypnosis sessions where they were getting to their subconscious and they were experiencing what they were before here or where they were before here. That's what I was like, oh no, what if I'm on a couch somewhere in the future and I'm dreaming this up and I'm sitting there talking to a hypnotist and I'm explaining this life of Jamie, like who she was and what she was doing. And it feels real because these people that even if you watch a session on YouTube, they really believe it. They're crying, they're rejoicing, all under hypnosis as if they're reliving this lifetime. Sure. So I was convinced. I was like, oh my God, I'm on a couch somewhere, like someplace in the future, dreaming up this life. But that connected me to the ultimate part of it when I completed the promise, where I understood it, that there is a dreamer and he awakens and he's dreaming of you. And you think that you're an individual, but he's dreaming you into form. He's dreaming the manifestation or the man of you into this reality. So that all played out for me exactly the way that it was meant to for me.
That's it. It's all meant to be. It's all perfect. Everything, all of it is perfect. And when you see that oneness of God, who is perfect, who is love, who is light, we're told, who's spirit, right? You can't fail. You're destined to rise and to be victorious. You'll overcome the world. The same words he spoke, you'll speak. Fear not, I've overcome the world. Be of good cheer. Don't be afraid. My peace I give to you. So, and that peace is an active peace. You'll begin to, I said it in my last podcast, you are a partaker of the divine nature, we're told. So all that's in the vine is in you and you'll experience it. That's the fruitfulness. That's the fruit on the vine. But you're the seed, you're the root, and you're the fruit. You're all of it. The leaves that never wither.
Yeah. And I also say with a pure heart, fear can't dwell. It does not dwell there. When your heart is made pure and it's purified and it's cleansed, there is no fear. There is nothing to fear. You're not fearing the future because you're not thinking that way. You know that you could create anything that you want to experience, and you're not bringing the past to the future in the now. So you're not looking backwards. You're not focused on that. And with love for yourself, there's nothing that anyone could do to you. There's nothing that anyone could do to me right now. So it's like, what could you possibly fear? And I went through that with my shark thing last year that I had to do. I didn't even know it was a fear of mine, but I got in the ocean. I stopped doing all water sports in the ocean because of my fear of sharks. And that was it. I was led to do that. I had no idea why I did it that day. I have no idea. It was a divine idea that came in my mind. And I was like, okay, that sounds like a good thought. Better today. The ocean was nice and calm. And I swam till I couldn't see the shore. And I just floated there. And I was like, the original thought came through. Like, I'm in a shark's house. That would usually be my first thought. And then it would be followed by, if it's hungry. And I couldn't get mad if I was eaten by a shark, but that was a belief of mine, or a thought of mine, not a belief, but it was a fear. And while I was floating there, and I was just like, okay, I'm in a shark's house if he's hungry. And then it just switched to, but I love them and they love me and I'll be fine. Like it just dissolved. There's no fear. Like I'm going to fear a shark. I'm never going to go swimming again. Or that's what was happening though. And it was something that came on, and I have no idea when it started, but it wasn't even a conscious thing. It wasn't even like I knew that I wasn't going in the ocean to swim because I had a fear of sharks. I was just like, nah, I'm just going to stay safe over here. There's big waves or whatever. But it was really the fact that I downloaded an app on my cell phone that was tracking great white sharks, and I was able to see where they were going. And that's how it started, probably 10 or 12 years ago, that I was looking at where these sharks went. And that's how it all began for me, where I'm like, oh my God, that shark just swam from New England to New Jersey, and now it's in New York. It's on its way down south, and I don't want to go swimming. I could be in its path. So
as a surfer, I very much respect your bravery. So good job on that. But love doesn't devour itself. Love doesn't, you talked about the planets and everything in its perfect orbits. And I mean, it's all in a perfect order, all of it. And God is a God of order. And so you're, and I are very, and everyone listening, very much part of that. You can't be destroyed. You can't be harmed.
Or you could, if that's what it's going to come down to. But for me at that time, it was for me to get over that fear, because fear cannot dwell. So I can't go through my life. I can't go through my life with my heart so pure and open and have a fear of a shark that may or may not attack me. So I'm never going to go in the ocean again. And that's what was happening. And I have my children. So they would say like, come on, come swim. And I'm like, I don't think so. Like they're like, come jump off the boat. I'm like, no, I'm good right here. No, thank you. Like, and the thought was always present. Like, there could be something underneath there. I don't know what's there. So that was one of those things that I had to work through, that fear. And then since then, I'm like, there's nothing to fear. Like there's no thoughts of fear, even with my children, which sounds crazy, them riding their bikes or like at the park, and everyone else is just like, well, they could get hurt or this. I don't even have those thoughts of getting hurt. I'm like, they'll be fine. As soon as someone says like, watch out, you could fall, that's when something happens. I don't even do that anymore. Now I'm just like, go have fun and just be safe.
It sounds like a perfect metaphor for life. And really, again, on that bigger level, that spiritual level, which is the spiritual meaning of the whole Bible, is accepting this message that God became us, that he identifies himself as us. You said it, I like the way you said it, God's pretending, right, to be us, but he's not pretending. He actually became us. That's the whole thing, that you and I are looking at the light of the world as we look out upon the world and see all that is. It's all light. And I want to, the verse that comes to my heart as you're speaking this is, there's a verse, I want to say it's in 1 John. I couldn't quote exactly where, but he says that he that fears has not been perfected or made perfect in love, because fear involves torment, or a connotation of that is fear involves judgment. And so I know there's a lot of people that are watching with that judging. That's the Pharisaical, the Sadducees, the religious crowd in the Bible. They speak of that aspect of our own psyche, right? That does that. We're afraid that God's going to get angry at us for, can we accept that I am one with him? Can I really accept this message? And I feel like all the things that you and I are talking about, even the promise itself, is that pattern of unfoldment where, yeah, you can accept this and know that this is the truth, that I am the truth. Just as Jesus said it, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Not Tommy Medwin. My I amness, my imagination, my consciousness is God, because there's only one consciousness. My mind is God, because there's only one mind. My love is God's love. God's life is my life. Life is alive. So consciousness is love. Consciousness is light, right? It's all these aspects. And I feel like I want to encourage people, yes, you can allow that robotic little spider to get eradicated from your foot, from your understanding. Don't be afraid, right, to accept the oneness of God, the love of God, that he actually became. He loves you so much that he had an idea in his glorious dream. If you were to dream up this fabulous play called life, because he's the author of it, he's the director of it, and yes, he became the actor that is you. I want to say, yes, this is the gospel, folks, that these mystics all throughout the Bible were telling. You're hearing Jamie tell it. Lots of others now are out there on YouTube, on the internet, sharing it. Listen, the world is waking up. God's waking himself up. And so I want to say, don't be afraid, folks. Don't be afraid of judgment of some God. We have to change our understanding about God as some separate entity, as some creator in the sky that made all of this, and he's somehow aloof from it, or he just set the universe in motion to operate in its own. No, he is the universe. He actually clothes himself with all of it. He breathed out the stars. The Bible says we're all his divine idea, and we are all one in that sense. So I want to say, yes, it's right and good to to hear, you have to continue to hear it, right? Neville says to say these same things over and over is not wearisome to me. You have to hear it over and over and over until you can really accept this gospel.
Because sometimes it takes a while. So sometimes it takes a while for us to realize that I could say something the same way. I could say something, the same thing 10 different ways, and it will resonate with you at that time, at that point in time when it's meant to, or when you're able to understand it for yourself. And on the flip side to that, I could say the same thing to you over and over again, and you may never understand that. And that's just where you're operating from, based on wherever you are in your own consciousness at that time. But the constant impression is going to be there, whether we are aware of it or not. It's the impression upon the subconscious mind, which is why you say like the no social media aspect, which is why I agree with that, because it's flooding you with things that just leaving you little thought impressions. You know, watching the news, it may not be a big deal, but while it's on and you're cooking dinner, or you're, having a conversation with someone else, it is recording in the background. So this is the same thing. The more people hear that there are others who've had that experience, even if you've never come to Neville, even if you've never heard of Neville before, like I had never heard of him before I went through I didn't hear about him until after the experiences. So even if that's where someone else is, you don't need anyone to tell you what the experience is afterwards. Like after the whole series, you don't need anyone to tell you, you know it. So you may not know that Neville exists, or you may not even know that I'm here speaking about it as well. There are many people that believe that they're the only ones, and they, it's like, they know they can't be the only one. But they may not be on YouTube or listening to the podcast, so they may feel like there's no one else that has experienced it yet. But the whole entire thing is so meaningful because it's only in this lifetime that it matters. So to go to what we were speaking about before, when I get asked about what happens after this, or what happens after this lifetime, the most important thing is to focus on this lifetime, not the past lifetime.
Right now,
future, right now, because right now is the time period where you have the ability to wake up. You didn't wake up in the past, even if you did. So let's just say I had gone through series of awakenings in all my lifetimes, and it's just this lifetime I fulfilled my ultimate awakening. I don't care about what happened in the past. It doesn't even matter to me. Why would it make a difference? Right now is the time that all our creative power exists in. So that is the most the profound thing to me when I'm explaining or expressing this, that if you are coming to any of this information in this lifetime, there is a reason that it's even before you, that you're being impressed upon it, because there are people in my life that still don't know this aspect of me, because I don't speak it to them. I may say things like, you're creating your reality, but I am not sitting there telling them at that point where they're at in their awareness, you're God, or God is pretending to be you. They're not ready for that yet. Eventually they will come to that. Being around me enough, they'll come to that. But for everyone who is in this space right now, this is the lifetime for it, because there is no impression in the subconscious mind when we leave here. So I do know a little bit about this aspect, because I'm able to understand it when we, if I was to die today without having experienced any of the promise, I get recollected in the sphere of, I'm just going to call it, like, let's just say the subconscious, right? So I get recollected in that sphere. I can't be impressed in that sphere. You have to be alive for your mind to be impressed upon. So you'd have to come back to life. It would be no choice. Now, on Earth, the people that have experienced it, they can impress upon people just by being around them. The inner movement happens whether I do anything or not. Your own subconscious, because the subconscious is one. The mind is one. Everything is one. So when you are around others, or when I am around others, that movement is going to be taking place no matter what I have to do or what you do. But the important thing is that it's in this lifetime where you have the ability to actually wake up as God. It's this lifetime, not No, no other lifetime matters. Just focus on it in this lifetime and put your mind to that, and then hopefully that it will come. I don't know when, or I don't know the time and hour for anybody else. Like Neville said it, and I say it, and you've said it. You have no idea when the father wants to wake up from his dream. He's the one dreaming it. How the hell would I know when he wants to wake up?
That's exactly right. But contemplate it, accept this divine love, right? Accept divine union. And yeah, live your every moment like this is all you've got. Live it like it's going to recede into the past, but so let's live it like it's a good memory. Let's live it like it's going to be a picture frame I can hang in my hallway in my mansion and revisit. Oh, that was my time on earth. That's when I did that. Like make them good, right? It's all what you make it. So let's make it awesome, guys. Come on.
Yes, that's exactly it. Like if you had to retell the story one day, you want it to be a good story. You want it to be a good story of an overall lifetime. Like how great that lifetime was. Like when I was a monk, like that was a great lifetime. I sat all day and I read and I like meditated all day. That was a good lifetime. But this lifetime is great. Like this is the lifetime I get to, I get to share my love. I get to be a mom. I get to do that with children, and my kids do know a lot. Like when I listen to them speak and they correct others, which is really funny to me. I was with my niece. I'm at my sister's house a lot, and she said something about Jesus, and they said, Jesus is you. It's not even real. Like something like that. I was like, oh no, like not everyone's gonna understand that. So she's like, there is so a Jesus. And they're going back and forth about that. And they said, no, my mom said Jesus is us. There's no man named Jesus. That's what your church is telling you. So they're listening to me speak, or they're getting it, however it is that they understand it. But I found that so cool because they have said before that they were God, or they have said before that they are understanding that aspect, which is amazing to get out of that mindset that God is external from us, or that God is in the sky, or God is on the throne somewhere in heaven, and he's so far from us that it is special that at a young age that we could, you do it with your children, I know. So it is important that we could do that let them know, like it's within you, it's within your heart, it's within your mind, and you don't need to wait to meet God. You could actually do that now. Just be loving, be accepting, be grateful, be understanding, and your experiences will start to reflect that.
That's it.
Be. That's all I'm going to say. I tell everyone the same thing, even on the Reddit. Be, not do. We're not here to do anything. We don't have to do anything. Just be that first. You want to experience all this stuff, and you want to try to change the external, and you want to when is the world going to change? Well, have you changed yet? Has anyone else really changed? Because my world, that what I see out in the world, is symbolic. I don't see anything that everyone else sees. I'm seeing exactly the mind of man. I'm seeing the exact timeline, the storyline of creation, and it's perfect. It's exactly what it needs to do to get everyone out of their separation, or to even see the separation, to be able to see it firsthand, the separation that they even have within them. We do that personally, and then we do that collectively in a big way. And that's exactly what we're watching right now. All the separation that we have within ourselves, just amplified. And now we see it on the big screen of the world.
That's it. That's great stuff, Jamie. You have a great post, by the way, on your subreddit on the symbolism of 2020 and some of those events. So I encourage everybody to go check out Neville the Promise subreddit. Say hi to Jamie on there. Tell her I sent you. And I pop in there from time to time as well. But thanks for those words. Any parting thoughts? Because I know you and I could talk all day.
I know. I don't have any parting thoughts. We're just gonna have to do like a part 3.
Yeah. All right, we'll do it. I'm gonna give it a little teaser too for Nico coming up. Nico's big on these 12 disciples and that understanding. I had lunch with Nico a month or two ago, and he told me those of you that have interest in aliens that are watching, we talked a little bit about it. Nico has the most amazing alien encounter story that I've ever heard, let alone from somebody. I've never met anybody personally that has had one. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, just as a little I'm not the type to give teasers, to keep people hanging, but my goodness, this next one is going to be a doozy with Nico. So tune in for that. You'll love it.
Is Nico out of that alien space?
No, he comes from like a charismatic Christian background like myself. So we talk a lot of, Bible stuff. So that's why I was kind of surprised, to hear that. So, but this is just my personal, I'll talk about this more with Nico. My personal thing is, if God is infinite, which he is, then certainly his mind isn't confined to what's happening on the planet Earth. Let alone how many billions of stars are in our galaxy. Well, there's billions of galaxies, folks. I mean, come on. They say space is infinite in that regard. So certainly God's putting on a fabulous play, and that's the thing that you and I talked about, Jamie. It's still all imagination. It's all
Yeah.
imagination manifesting and expressing itself, and the heart of it is love. So I feel like these kind of missions that we have, where we're waking up our brothers and waking ourselves up, we're going to do wherever we find ourselves, even if that's the Andromeda galaxy, or wherever we find ourselves, whatever's next.
Yeah.
But then there's that thing of falling asleep into it, where I'm now sidetracked and I'm trapped in the manifestation of it. I kind of go side reel, and I get off the story of which is the gospel, and what is the ultimate reality, which is God. God is the ultimate reality. Imagination is the reality. It sounds
I was in
paradoxical,
that
but that's
space,
it.
so I get it. I was in that extraterrestrial space, and that's where I was, and you have to get out of that. So not meaning you have to get out of the separation in it. So it's not that
That's
you get
right.
out of it like it never existed. You get out of the separation, because in that extraterrestrial space, there's this group versus this group. It's
Yeah,
like
the galactic war is happening, all
yeah,
all that
and
stuff.
that
Yeah.
none of that is real. So that's the thing. None of that is real. And I could explain this to you, and we could have this conversation totally another time, but that was like where I lost a lot of friends from that, because I was now out of it, and I was just like, wait, you're still talking about this? So now not only is there a war on Earth, but now there's a galactic war we have to worry about. Like, that didn't make any sense. Like, so I was just like, and I already fulfilled the promise. So that was me. And I was just like, I know myself as God. Like, I don't even know what's going on right now. Like, I woke up one day, I woke into the sun, like I was having my own real life experience, and then I was having conversations like about this galactic war, and they were like, there's going to be this, and I said, everyone's waiting, you guys keep waiting, you're waiting for this, you're waiting for that, you're waiting, get out of it. There is no waiting. It's right now. This is all happening. The extraterrestrials, and I explain this: extra terrain, the extra consciousness, the space that you've never tapped into before. It's all symbolic.
That's good. Yeah. There's
So
revelation in all of what you're saying. It's perfect. So, but it's fascinating stuff. So I enjoy these kind of chats. So
yeah,
thanks.
yeah. I can't wait to hear it, because that was my
It'll be
space.
fun. Yeah. Yeah. We'll get into it. So, Jamie, thanks again. I'm certain we'll have a
Thank
part
you.
3. I want to have my buddy Alan back too. Alan, man, just has such a beautiful heart. Some of you did comment on my last video that you'd like a copy of his book. So I need you to email me your address. Email me at awakenyourimaginationat@gmail.com. I will reach out to you in the comments as well to do the same. So it'll be to be continued, is what I'm saying, with Alan, certainly with you, Jamie, because it's always such a pleasure. So thank you for your time. I know you're blowing up over there. You got
Yeah,
things
well, no,
to do
I
and
have
attend.
kids. Everyone's like looking like
Life, yeah.
what? So
But this is why it's good for people to see, like, you're experiencing
it's
this
real
awakening
life,
process, and
real
the problem,
life,
but you're still here. You're still
real
here,
life,
and
real
make it
life.
great, guys. Make life great. So, Jamie, you are great. Thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
We'll see
Thank
you
you.
around for sure. Thank you for watching, everyone who's tuning in. We'll see you next time on the Imagining God podcast. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.